Hello, and in this tutorial here we're going to add some rigging to our character. We're going to start by going Shift A, to click on Blender first, so Shift A, and add armature single bone. So I'm going to move this down on the Z axis just by hitting G and Z, and then I'm going to go into edit mode, and with the top or the tip of the bone, GZ as well. So here it is. Now I can't see this bone, so I'm going to go over to the armature settings here and display, and I'm going to say in front, so I can see like an X-ray sort of setting. So I'm just going to use the tools that we would use in mesh editing. So E and Z, E and Z, E and Z, all the way to the top, and whoops, I don't want that. And then E and Z for the neck, and E and Z for the head. Now I'm going to press 3 and look from the side, and to reposition these I'm going to just use the tip of each bone and press G and try and position these in what I hope will be a logical position. Okay. So that is our spine, our neck, and our head. So what we want to do now is we want to extrude out our arms. So I'm looking for a tool which is called X-axis symmetry. I'm not quite sure where they've put it in this new version of Blender, so I'll have a quick look at the menu, see if I can find it. And it doesn't seem to be there, so let's see if I can just extrude from here. So I'm going to press Shift E, and that hasn't worked, so I'm going to take this bone here and press X and delete the bone and see if I can find viewport, so I can see the axes, duplication, no. So it's going to be worth our while to actually find this, because if we do use the tool, the X-axis symmetry tool, we only have to make one arm and one leg, and the rest will be mirrored. So now it used to be, where's our, there we go, hidden away. Who would have thought they would have hidden it in such a cunning place? So X-axis mirror is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to turn that on, and then with that turned on I can press Shift E, and then I get an armature on either side to the top of the shoulder. I'll press G and position that, extrude to the elbow, to the wrist, and to the hand. Again, I'm going to press 7 and look from the top, and then press each bone and see if I can just position them correctly. Now if you remember from what we did in class, we had another bone that was vertically up here, so this is sort of going to be the IK target, or the inverse kinematic target, so we can move things with chains. So down here I'm going to go Shift E and create the hips, and again just E on its own now to the knee, E down to the shin. I look from the side and press G to position these. So I'm going to extrude for the foot and for the toe. I'm going to extrude for the heel, and then extrude out for IK. And then up here I'm going to extrude backwards along the y-axis for a bend bone. Now none of these bones have any names, so I'm going to try and name them. So this is called bone, which is the first one that we made, so we'll call this spine. And while labeling these might be slightly laborious, it's well worth doing. So spine 2 and spine 3. One of the things that Blender will allow us to do is to mirror poses. So when we make a walk cycle, which again we looked at very fleetingly in class, it will allow us to mirror poses either side of an axis. So for example, if I call this shoulder dot L and this other shoulder dot or, then if I move this one right and save it and then tell the other one to mirror, it'll kind of flick between them. So if you can remember, we had one leg forward and one leg back. Rather than trying to move them by hand, it'll just literally mirror the pose. So we'll call this arm.l, arm.or, and you have to use the .l and .or extension for this mirroring to work. So this is a forearm.l and forearm.or. This only really becomes difficult when you have to do fingers, because there's lots and lots of bones. And then this is hand.l and hand.or. Oops. And then we'll call this handIK.l and then handIK.or. Okay, this should be our bend bone. And then we don't need these. These two here are unnecessary, and we'll worry about relationships between bones in a minute. So this is going to be a leg, .l and leg.or. This will be our shin and shin.or. This will be the foot. Nearly there. Foot.or. This will be our toe. So toe.l and toe.or. And this will be our heel. .or. Heel.l, and then the last two bones. So this is foot ik.l and foot ik.or. So you can call them anything you want, the bones, so long as the names are duplicated either side, and it's not, if memory serves, it's not case sensitive. So the next thing we need to set up is the relationship between the bones. So the relationship is quite easy when the bones are all in a chain. So like if this one moves, it'll move this one and all the way down the chain. If the shoulder moves, then all of these bones then here will follow suit. It's not so obvious here at the legs. So this is our spine here and this is our leg. So we need to set the parent. So if we go to relations here, it says it has no parent. So if I select say that bone, actually it's a bad example, it's the first one. So this bone here, its parent is the spine. The spine should be the child of the bend bone. Okay, so when the bend bone goes up and down, it should pull the spine with it. And these bones here, these should be the children of the spine as well. When the spine if I jump up, then these should follow. So this should be the child of the spine bone, and this should be the same. And you can see here that Blender draws kind of dotted lines between the bones to show you the relationship. Okay, so then the other thing we need to change here, and this is probably not intuitive, is this bone here is the child of the forearm, but we don't want it to have any parent. And that's because it will, for the chain effect that we want, the inverse kinematic effect we want, if any of the IK bones, the kind of guide bones, are in the chain, then they can't be independent of the chain. They can't then guide the bones where to go. And again, we'll spend a bit of time in class exploring why that is, and seeing it not work and then work. So I'm ready to set up the kind of relationships now, the more advanced ones, the inverse kinematic ones. So I'm going to go out of edit mode and into pose mode. And in here I can add a bone constraint. So these are a bit like sort of the modifiers we'd add to a mesh, and there's lots of them. We can have a bone copy the scale or the rotation of another bone. We can limit its rotation if you didn't want, an elbow, for example, can't bend backwards, or a knee can't. You don't want to run like an ostrich. So you may want to limit the rotation of certain bones or joints. So I'm going to add an inverse kinematic relationship here with a chain length of 2. Now, what's my target? My target is this armature. And then the bone I want to target is the hand ik.l, which is this bone here. So now if I press G here, I have this relationship, this 2 bone long relationship. Now I can select all, and I can go Alt or Alt G and reposition my skeleton. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to add an inverse kinematic constraint to my armature, which I probably need to rename. I'm going to give it a chain length of 2, and then the bone is going to be handik.or. And we're going to do something similar down here. The IK constraint goes on the shin bone, and it's going to target this IK bone here. So we're going to go inverse kinematics, armature, and the bone that we want this time is the foot ik.l, and this has a chain length of 2 as well, so it's only up as far as the hip. And we'll repeat that over here. So inverse kinematic to the armature. Which bones we want? We want foot ik. Where are you? There you go, foot ik.or, with a chain length of 2. And now again we should be able to go G and move this leg. Okay, so this is our character, like our basic skeleton setup, and we just want to check that we can bend. So we can. So this is working. Keep in mind that the hands don't move up and down, but if you wanted that to happen, if you wanted to kind of bend the legs with these hands out, if I select these here and go G, now forget the knees crossing there, but you can see that I can move it up and down. Or if I wanted to jump in the air, if I select these ones here as well, then the whole thing will move together. Okay, so this is a fairly basic rig. If you look at other tutorials on how to rig characters, they can get very, very complicated. So this is a very basic one. We will look at more advanced rigging, like sort of keeping the toe of the foot horizontal during the stride, etc. But I'm not going to worry about it too much for now. This is just sort of an introductory stage. So I'm going to save now before I join the skeleton and the mesh together. But I'm just going to leave this tutorial with the skeleton complete. So that's enough for now.